and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. We
are the podcast gems,
and we'll always save the day.
And if you think we can't,
we'll always find a way.
That's why the people of the web believe in
Scotty
and the Matt
and you
and Elise.
This week on the show is another of our patron-produced episodes. Folks who pledge to us at the Supreme Leader Doof level on Patreon, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get to select a TV series, book, or video game for us to do a show on. This week, if you haven't already guessed, our patron The Bob asked us to take a look at the Cartoon Network series Steven Universe. So Matt, we're going to be talking all about season 1 of Steven Universe, which is actually like 50 episodes.
Yes. When I first heard that, I was intimidated. But let me tell you a true story. I was watching this with my kids, and there was a period of time where I like wasn't paying attention for like 10 episodes. It was like on in the room, and I wasn't paying attention. And I went back and I watched those episodes again because I wanted to know what happened. That's how into this I was.
Great. That's great news. So we're going to be talking all about season 1 and only season 1. It will be full spoilers discussion for that season. So that's the big main event of the show. But we are also going to circle back around to last week's episode and find out the results of our Council of Doof voting for Primer, the first episode to decide whether a movie gets into the Doof canon. Our results are in, and we're going to talk about them. And then we're going to wrap up the episode, Matt, with me talking about a video game I just played, because when I play good video games, I want to talk about them. That's why I have a podcast, and that's what I get to do. So,
sounds fair.
I played To the Moon over the weekend. It's a short, story-driven game, and I kind of want to just talk to you about it and maybe convince some people out there who haven't tried it to give it a try.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear about it.
All right, but first, let's talk all about Season 1 of Steven Universe. Matt, what is Steven Universe?
A team of intergalactic warriors fights to protect the universe, but the combination of 3 highly trained beings and 1 quirky young boy leaves the team struggling to overcome the dangerous scenarios that are put in front of them.
Aw, that's kind of true. That's much better than the Primer explanation last week.
It's much better. It still gives you I think it's tonally quite off because
yes,
the like delightful, charming purity of the show is really what like yeah, there's fighting, but like the fighting is just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Steven Universe is a show that premiered on Cartoon Network in 2013. The first season, as we said, ran for 53 episodes. Of course, these episodes are about 11 minutes in length, so it's a much shorter than like a half hour or an hour long show. So it comes out to, I think it was about 8 hours of TV watching when all was said and done. Did I say it was created by Rebecca Sugar? Did I say that already?
I don't
Created by
remember.
Rebecca Sugar, who also was a writer on the other Cartoon Network show that I have never seen called Adventure Time, which I think you were talking before the show started how you kind of put those two things in the same
box.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like I've never seen Steven Universe at all before this week. I've still never seen any Adventure Time, but I sort of bin them together as being like, oh, those Cartoon Network shows that people rave about to a degree that I don't fully understand and am slightly frightened by. But now I understand this one, and I get to be one of those weirdos.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those things that I treated as, just a thing that I was too old for, and it was for people younger than me, and I didn't know what it was at all, but I was like, it's just like some younger cartoon for kids that these people liked, and I just kind of moved on with my life. And so I had never watched it. I had no plans to watch it. And then we had to sit down and watch 53 episodes. And let me tell you something, Matt. This show really sneaks up on you.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the main things I want to talk to you about is the way in which this show starts from an 11-minute thing is almost like you're just watching a YouTube video, and it just seems like just some like harmless, just goofy kid show. It's just a lot of fun, just a little neat fun, little 10-minute activity break, and then suddenly 30 episodes in, you find yourself like really invested in these characters in a way you just did not expect. That like if I'm being entirely honest, I went into the show kind of like, psh, I'm not gonna. I mean, look at this. Especially even after the first episode, I was like, I mean, yeah, that made me laugh, but like, come on, this is a kid show.
Yeah.
And gosh, it destroyed me. And like it made me feel all kinds of emotions.
Absolutely, yeah. There were several different episodes where I was like, well, we've got to talk about this episode for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what the average episode length is or whatever, but I think if anything, the short episodes works in the show's favor because the scripts, the story is extremely tight and efficient, and there's a lot of visual storytelling that's done. And it's very fast paced, and overall, it's just that's why it hits you so fast. Like I think I was bought into it relatively quickly, and just escalated from there. A lot of it, like I just said, has to do with the the scripting and pacing, but a lot of it also has to do with the characters, which are just wonderful.
Oh yeah,
we could go through like every character in this thing, and they're all so like clearly drawn and lovable, and I mean ultimately that's I think what sucks you in and makes you really invested.
They're lovable. I think lovable is a great word because they are. I mean, like the heart of the show is the person who the show is named after, Steven, and he sets the tone for everything that happens around him, right? So like even when you get into dark emotional stuff, which happens, it definitely happens in this show, he is always at the center of it, and therefore it always is like it's always gonna be okay, you know? Like and that's this fascinating thing that I really want to explore with you over the course of the show is the way in which the show navigates like super dark, deep, complex themes and motifs in a way that always comes off as like this kind of childish, but I don't mean that in a bad way, like just joy and optimism and happiness.
Yeah.
That I don't know, like I'm not even quite sure how it does it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's amazing. Like I have a hard time articulating what is different when comparing this show against something else we've covered, like She-Ra, for example, where like I find there's like a huge amount of authenticity in this show. And like Steven's character, there's I think everything about Steven and Connie's relationship is beautiful and perfect, and is clearly operating at like a thematic level way above a cartoon show aimed at kids. But of course it also functions as a cartoon show aimed at kids, like the episode where they accidentally fusion.
Oh my god.
We all know what that episode is about. We all know what they're talking about. And it's this fantastic exploration of like them having joined together and like exploring this kind of scary boundary zone of like what's comfortable and having sort of compatibilities between them, but also they're not really the same, and things that Steven likes scare Connie, and they don't fully understand each other. It's this great, like, I mean, I was sort of 20% joking saying that it's a metaphor for sex, but it's also a metaphor for just being in an intense relationship with someone.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe more directly that actually. And like just the whole arc of that episode, I was like riveted. I was like, what direction are they going to take this? Like, is it going to go in a tragic direction? And I was just so like, it was just so satisfying. It was like, I feel like you could take that episode actually and just show it to someone with no familiarity with this show, because all you need to know is like, oh yeah, there's this thing where you fuse with someone. That's the conceit of the thing, and you get it. And then you move on from there, and there's these characters kind of exploring each other's psyche. It's just so good.
Yeah. No, that's really great points. I agree that I love that episode. I think This is a tough show to have a conversation about in this like truncated amount of time, right? Because there's so many episodes. Like, yes, the episodes are short, but to your point, like each episode has a theme still. Like it's still telling a complete story. So like the thing that's cool about that is that it allows you to get character moments between just about every single character in the show. Like I think literally every single character in the show has an episode where they are featured prominently and in which they interact with other characters prominently.
Yeah.
Like Steven and his father gets an episode with Amethyst that we learn so much about their relationship. Even some of the side characters from Beach City have their own relationships going on. There's the whole thing between Lars and
Sadie.
I forgot. Yeah, with Sadie. But then there's this whole thing with Lars and the other guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's just so much here because they've like just taken what you could stretch out into a 42-minute episode and squashed it into 11 minutes, but it never feels like it loses any of it, right? I think like economy of storytelling here is remarkable.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a lot of kind of threads in the background that are just very deftly handled. Like like I mean, Garnet's reaction when Steven and Connie fuse is so wonderful. And like at the time you're just like, oh, that's kind of cute. But then later you realize there's much more significance to that.
Yeah, because she is a fusion herself. Yeah.
Exactly.
So she would love that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that is just, it's so great. Like I want to just for a second, like Lars and Sadie's relationship to me is like the saddest part of the show. And maybe you disagree. I'm interested to get your reaction because we didn't talk about this beforehand. I kind of intentionally avoided talking about this, but like,
yeah, I don't think we've had like any conversations about this show.
I find Lars to be such a depressing character. I kind of think he's awful, but in a way that just makes me sad. And
interesting.
And also like Sadie, like I feel like they're a terrible couple, and they should not be together. But they sort of can't help it. It's this like doomed, sad high school relationship type thing where I'm like, oh, this is just so like realistic and awful and sad to me. Like, but for a show that's really very like pure and optimistic, that is almost like the most pessimistic element of the show to me is their relationship and Lars in particular.
I'm trying to remember how the season left the status of their relationship because they had the whole desert island thing, and then they seemed to patch that over, but I can't remember where we ended the season with them.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I mean, I think that I think it's sort of ambiguous constantly whether they're like together. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I think it's supposed to be kind of ambiguous. Yeah, I mean, Lars is an interesting character because we do learn a lot about him. Like his efforts to want to be with the cool kids make you sad, right? Like he's so desperate to be part of that group. And that's like, I think the episode where he's like trying to get the cool kids' attention by like being aloof and Steven just walks up and starts talking to them is like just a perfect like encapsulation of the show. Because that's just like Steven approaches every problem with, okay, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
And just goes into it like, and it's such a fascinating way to explore how other characters who are maybe more I don't want to say human because that it feels insulting to Steven, but like have behavior that more correctly maps to like what a person in our world would behave like versus Steven's just like never fazed by anything. No, like nothing's gonna bother me kind of always moving forward type of behavior.
Yeah. I get your point about them being more human because I mean they're more flawed. Pretty much everyone is more flawed than Steven. Steven's only flaws would be naivete, I guess.
Sure.
But that doesn't usually turn out to be much of a flaw. I mean, I guess sometimes he gets into bad situations because he assumes everything's going to turn out all right.
Yeah.
And like he's very trusting, and then it's always really sad when he feels like his trust is violated.
I mean, I feel like most of the bad situations Steven gets into is when people like allow him to do things he definitely should not be allowed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's like parent relationships is one thing I really want to focus on this show a lot, because I don't know what to make of them.
Yeah.
One of the first things we learn in the show is that Steven's mother, Rose Quartz, one of the crystal gems, sacrificed herself to create him. This whole, and we don't really understand the detail of it. We haven't fully gotten the detail of it, but basically an idea that like she cannot exist while he exists. And so she gave her life to create him. He's basically like this new being, right? This combination of gem and human that has never existed before. And so that's like one of the tone setting moments is like, this is a show about a kid whose mother died in childbirth, basically.
Right.
And whose father lives in his van outside of his car wash place, and he doesn't live with his dad. So it's like absentee father, mother who died in childbirth, being raised by his 3 aunts, basically. And it's so interesting because like this is all like later episodes will directly address a lot of the stuff and do it with the pathos it deserves, but at beginning it's just like this is just his life, and because he's so optimistic and so cheery and so seemingly well adjusted, you're just kind of like, okay, and you just accept it and just like go with it. But in the back of my mind I'm like, this is kind of fucked up. Like, I like Greg. I like his dad. He seems like a cool dude, but he also is very uninvolved in his son's life.
Yeah.
He comes in and out of episodes. He doesn't live with him because he lives in a fucking van. He doesn't seem, and like, you don't have to be ambitious to be a good father, but he just doesn't seem like he's at various points interested in his son's upbringing and completely uninterested in his son's upbringing.
Yeah. Well, he's just sort of weak. Like he repeatedly is like, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with you doing all this gem stuff. It seems dangerous. And then and then it will prove itself to be dangerous. And then he will just be like, wow, this is terrible. And then it will just keep on going. Like he never puts his foot down.
There's like a wonderful episode. I think the episode's called Summer Vacation, where Connie is like, it's here, Steven, summer vacation. He's like, what does that mean? Like, school's over. And he's like, what's school?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? And it's funny because I think the show on some level realizes this because it makes a joke out of that. Like the next thing we see is Steven walking into Beach City, like singing about how happy he is that summer break is here.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't go to school.
Right.
And like it's aware of these things and it jokes off of them. And eventually but I don't know, like, how worried am I supposed to be about Steven as like a person? I don't know.
I mean, I think you're probably about the right level, but like I like the scene. One of my favorite moments is when he's driving with the cool kids, and the cool kids are all kind of venting about their personal problems, and then he basically just kind of summarizes the previous arc of the story, and he's like, yeah, and I think the gems love me, but I think they sort of blame me for the fact that my mom isn't here, and there's an alien who's trying to kill me and kidnapped me, and like 2 other things, and all the other kids just react with like stunned silence, and you're like, yeah, like this is heavy, right? And Steven is sort of aware that it is heavy, and he's shouldering it, and I almost want to walk back what I said about him being naive, because if I wonder if like the thesis statement for this show isn't like extremely, like literally supernaturally emotionally intelligent godchild teaches town of flawed humans how to be better people, because like you think about moments where like the gems give him the fake obstacle course because they want him they want to boost his self-esteem, and like he figures out it's fake, and he's so mad about it, and he feels so like betrayed, and then he listens in and he hears them talking about it, and they're like they just want to make him happy. That's why they did it. And then he walks up to them, and you're like, oh, is he gonna be really mad? Is he gonna yell at them? And he's just like, oh, that was great, guys. Oh, that was awesome. And it's just a perfect it's like that's the emotionally intelligent way to respond to that situation, right? We didn't have like fake conflict caused by him like sort of choosing to be mad or behaving the way a child would and being petulant about it.
Yeah, he's never that. I mean, the show does have moments, and I agree with you. That's one of my favorite moments in the entire show, where it's such a beautiful moment. He's sitting on top of the obstacle course. He's so, I mean, rightfully angry, right? Like they have lied to him. They have once again treated him like a child, treated him like he couldn't do anything. And yeah, he does a very adult thing in that moment. He does a very mature thing in that moment, and you're just you're so proud of him. And that's the show again and again and again. It's like, there will be times when Steven behaves badly, behaves selfishly, or behaves angrily, but he always manages to find his way back to, I don't want to call it the status quo, but back to responsible behavior. And there are times when he is coached to that by the people that he's surrounded by, but there are times when he is leading the charge in that in general, and he is coaching other people in that. Like the episode where Pearl is dealing with the fact that Rose Quartz like had secrets from her and stuff that she's like, and I mean, I don't know. I know this show is like lauded for its LGBTQ like type of stuff, and I didn't see a whole lot of that in the first season, but I definitely think there's something going on between Rose Quartz and Pearl that like they didn't make 100% textual. Or at least from Pearl's side, like she's in love with her.
Yeah.
Like, and like she's dealing with that, and she's really mean to Steven, like really cruel to him. Like, I forget what one of the things she says, but like she makes it very, very clear that it's like she holds him responsible for losing the person that she loved. And it's like super harsh. And Steven walks her back from that ledge and like extends kindness and love to her despite all that. And it's like, wow, man.
Yeah.
like certainly not as a little kid. I don't know if I could behave that way now, let alone as a little kid.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean about the emotional intelligence. And I really do think like the idea of this being that Steven is, because he is half gem, he's half rose quartz, half human. And he's a kid, but he's like a supernaturally pure and good kid. Like, yeah, he has powers. He can like make shields and stuff, but his real power is his like goodness, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you can take the shield thing as a metaphor and like say like that is his power is to protect and aid and help all the people around him. Yeah.
There's just so many moments where like I feel like other sort of like I don't know. The protagonists of sort of vaguely similar kids shows would react in a way where they go for like the more dramatic and conflictual choice, because that's, you know, good storytelling is conflict, right? But Steven like always goes for de-escalating, empathy, understanding, sympathy, and like it's just such a feel good show, but not in a way that's like vapid. It's feel good in a way that makes you feel like you're becoming a better person, actually.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, it sneaks up on you in that regard, right? Because like the first episode is about how he wants to eat these. He's mad because these cookie cat like ice cream bars are not being sold anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's what he's mad about in the first episode. And that's funny. It really is funny. I thought that was really funny. And the fact that he thought, hey, wait a minute. I just like, is it the story of the cookie cat? Like basically the story of his mom? Hold on. This just occurred to me as I was speaking. What is the story of the cat again? It's like it came to the planet and then like, I swear to God, Matt, this is true.
No, I think you're probably right. I don't remember the story.
I love this show.
I don't remember. The show. Yeah, I mean that it probably literally is the story of his mother, and that's why he's attached to it subconsciously or something.
Yeah, and that's why his power was generated the first time he ate the cookie thing.
See, for me, I was like from the beginning, I was like, well, obviously his power is anchored in being in the right emotional state. And it has to be about like something like loving something, basically, and that basically turns out to be true. So
yeah, no, I think you're right. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying because I got so caught up with Space Cat. But I like I think maybe we've talked about Steven a lot. We've talked about some of the side characters, but I really think we need to talk about the Crystal Gems because they are too all amazing. And they are very like archetypal at first.
Yeah.
And then it complicates them from there. Like it's just a really good core idea for a character that then gets complicated. Like it's like you have the kind of reckless wild one, you have the very straight-laced one, and then Garnet's difficult to explain really in that regard. Like the super competent one, I guess.
Yeah, Garnet's fascinating because at first she almost came off as robotic. She's like she's like very serious and like you're not even sure if she cares about Steven, but like fairly rapidly you realize that she loves Steven just as much as any of the others. She's just very sort of no nonsense and focused on the mission. She seems to be the one, like she sort of seems to be the leader.
She's the one that can sense. I mean, she's got the future sight stuff, so she can she's the one that's usually picking their missions out for them. So I agree that with the leader. And of course we learn in one of the greatest reveals of the season, definitely the greatest reveal of the season, that she's actually a fusion of two other gems, which was just a cool moment. It's such a cool moment.
Yes, that made me way too excited for a 34-year-old man watching a cartoon. That was amazing. It
was so good.
That scene I later showed to my daughter because she had missed that one, and I was like, "No, you need to know about this. This is important."
Yeah, and then she has a great action song number.
Yeah,
where she beats up the other lady whose name I forgot.
Yeah, no, she's awesome. Like you said, Amethyst is like so interesting. At first, you're like, "Oh, she's the Michelangelo of the group."
Sure,
which she kind of is, but there's this like interesting element where she's sort of like the kid, like she was created by some process, and it's like dark and it's
super dark.
You don't fully understand what it is, but you understand that she's like ashamed of it, and she has this relationship with Greg somehow, and then Pearl, like. But man, Pearl's fascinating.
Oh my God, she's so fascinating. And I feel like the characters like Pearl are the characters that are usually, I think, the least favorite out of groups because they're like the stick in the mud type character. But I thought where they went with her was really, really fascinating because they are never afraid to show her flaws and show how this they show her value a lot. Over and over again, they show how valuable and important she is to the group, but they also show how her behavior is flawed and causes problems. And I guess that's true for every single one of the gems. But I think the ways in which they did it with Pearl were really fascinating to me.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like the ensemble nature of the show is really what makes it work.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily want to move away from talking about the gems, but I did want to talk about the Cronenberg episodes.
Oh my God.
which sort of, there's a bunch of crazy stuff like this, but I think that the Cat Fingers episode and the PD, the sentient fry costume episode, come really close together in the show.
They do.
It was actually, it happened in a way where I was like, oh, this is going to be like a weird psychedelic show. And then they actually backed off of that kind of thing, which is fine. But the Cat Fingers thing, I was just grinning so much because I was like, the direction this has gone in is so hilarious and delightful.
I think Frybo and Cat Fingers was a 1-2 punch of me starting to pay more attention to the show. Not saying it's only episode 5, so I'm only 40 minutes into this 8-hour experience. And it's not that I wasn't enjoying it. Every time people were chanting cheeseburger backpack, I was laughing my ass off because it's hilarious. But suddenly Cat Fingers happens, and it does what I think a normal cartoon show would do, which is oh, Steven is doing this thing and he gets himself in trouble. Oh no, it's cute and funny that he gets himself in trouble. And then it goes to 10 when you don't think it was going to go to 10.
Yeah.
And suddenly his whole body is being taken over by cats. And it's you're just holy shit. That is one of the things that the show does so often is it goes there. It just you wouldn't think it would go there, and then it does it.
Well,
and you're just like, and it works. Like it doesn't ruin the tone. It doesn't shake things up so much where like it's willing to fully commit to whatever wacky / horrifying / crazy plot of the episode that it's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the selling it is done in every way possible, but like he shows up, he's asking his dad for help as he's like morphing into more and more cats, and Steven is crying like, I'm a monster, and Greg is like, no, you're not, you're my son, and it's played straight, if you know what I mean, like it's hilarious because it's little like cute, super cute cats morphing out of his body, but also I don't know, it just worked. It's such a good and clever comedy thing. And then the same basic thing is done with the sentient fry costume where you're like, it just keeps getting creepier and more sort of like visually unsettling. I mean, like it's not like it's ever actually horror. Like you're never like, oh, I'm frightened. No, it's taking it as far in that direction as you can go while still being a kid's show, basically.
I agree with that. And like they're just like those are the things that stick in my mind the most. Just cat fingers. Like I literally wrote down in my notebook cat figures and just like underlined it 3 times because I was like, this has to be the one that I talk about. Like it has to be. Because it's just so wild. It's just so wild and crazy. And the show, like, you're right, it never really goes back to that kind of Cronenbergian stuff very much. But it does so many other things. Like, it feels like a lot of what the show feels like it's doing is taking a lot of television show concepts and just dropping that concept into this world and just seeing what happens. Like, there's a time travel episode. There's the Fly episode. There's like the giant woman episode is ridiculous. There's
the one where he gets concerned about like aging and then he becomes super old and it's almost like a Benjamin Button-esque sort of whatever that subgenre is where the concept of aging is played with as a sci-fi conceit.
Yeah. There's an episode, where it's like going to dinner with your girlfriend's parents and having you and your girlfriend's parents meet each other for the first time. There's like your first love episode. There's there's so many of these little moments. Like there's the whole Ronaldo thing with his conspiracy theory stuff. It's all these little ideas and of other kind of storylines put into this thing, and it just goes crazy places with it.
I wonder why there are 2 different episodes involving people faking injuries to get out of having to do things.
I don't know, because it's just, just what you do. What's the other one?
There's the one where Steven's dad fakes having a broken leg and
just to hang out with his boy.
Well, basically, it's to keep Steven from going on the mission, right? Yeah. But and then Lars fakes an injury so that he gets a sick day. Or he fakes an injury. He fakes a bad back or whatever. And then he actually goes and hangs out with the cool kids. And Steven and Sadie make like a nice thing for him. And then it's heartbreaking. And Sadie should not be interested in this kid because he sucks.
Yeah. And then they go hang out on a island for like a month, 2 months? Like how long were they on that beach?
I guess I didn't think it was that long. But now I don't know. I thought maybe it was a few days. I don't really
feel like it was like the entire length of Castaway. Like they were there for 7 years and then they.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
It was so great. So great. I mean, one thing we haven't talked about very much is the actual like overarching plot of this thing. Because it does eventually get to like moving the story forward with this reveal that the crystal gems, which I mean, the way it introduces who and what the crystal gems are is very interesting because with the first episode, you're just like, oh, this is some like in this world, it has like this special superhero team that protects the world from monsters that all have their own gems. And you're just like, sure. Okay. whatever. And then, of course, it expands on that, and we learn that the gems are an invading force, an alien invading force that tried to conquer the planet, and they have decided to stay here to protect the planet from those people. And like, I think it's really interesting that we learn like they are just as like alone from their world. Like they've lost their family and their life, and to do this kind of in a similar way to Steven and how he's lost his. I don't know. Like I really loved the wrinkle of like who they are and the choices they made and where they came from, especially considering that Amethyst ends up being like part of that invasion force.
Yeah.
Which maybe explains why Pearl is so hesitant to trust her. Like I feel like the whole protect the Earth thing was like Rose Quartz's deal, and I think Garnet supported her in it. I think Pearl just really loved Rose Quartz, and that's why she was in on it. And I don't think she was ever like not. And I'm not trying to say Pearl like doesn't care about humans and doesn't care about Steven, doesn't care about the Earth. I don't think that's true. But I think like she's much more nervous about the whole thing because like she's the only one that seems like she misses home. Like when she's like that's when she goes crazy with the building of the spaceship.
Yeah. Well, I think that I don't know if she loves humans, actually. I mean, I think she loves Steven, and I think she, in the abstract, wants to protect humans, but humans are like dirty and messy and confusing to her. I don't think she has this desire to protect humanity, which I think the other two gems do. I think that's a cool character trait, actually. It makes her feel a bit more nuanced. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I think that's, you said it in a way that's still fair to her, but I think you're right.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying about. I think part of it is that the tone of the show is this kind of silly, lighthearted idea, and then you realize over time that the backstory is this dark and rather epic thing, which is basically it is focused on more significantly in some episodes, like toward the end of the season when the other gems from the gem world, which has apparently been advancing technologically for thousands of years, attack, and they have to fight them off, and freaking somebody sacrifices their lives to fusion with the enemy and trap them underwater horrifyingly. I know, like Lapis, holy shit. Yeah. I did not see that coming. Lapis was Lapis had her own little arc. Yeah. The whole mirror arc, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. And then like oh yeah, the mirror. Didn't you wonder who I used to be? You were just gonna put me in a drawer? Oh my god, holy shit. Yeah, like they had to, like that's the interesting thing about the crystal gems is like they're good, but also they make choices that are like, really? Well, all they're doing every episode is they're going to find rogue gems and sealing them away, basically. And it sort of seems like most of these gems are like not as sentient as the crystal gems are. Yes. But we don't know that for a fact. Sure. I remember the one when he got the little monster pet gem. Yeah. And then it got squished terribly by the end of the episode. Oh my god. Yeah. Like it Jesus. I think you're right, is that like they're so invested in this mission that they're not concerned about that. They're not concerned about Lapis at all. And that's why I think when she first agrees to combine with, I think Jasper is the name of the gem. When she first agrees to combine with her, like you believe that she's chosen to say, fuck these people, I hate them. Like that she was convinced. And that was totally earned through the story because you see like how angry she is and how much they hurt her. But then she does the right thing, which is a horrible thing for her. I don't think she's gone. I think we're going to see both those characters again in later seasons, but because I think just like hanging out under the ocean is like, you're going to go back to that storytelling well eventually. But yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I didn't get the impression that they were killed. I got the impression that it was a trap. Yeah, she's just keeping her under the ocean for sure. Sure. And of course, I think we're going to see Peridot again because she escapes. At the end of that.
What an interesting character. All these, every time they added a new gem, I got like a little excited because I was like, ooh, interesting. New idea.
Yeah. I'm just kind of, just to zoom out, I'm just amazed that this works so well. Like if you just told me the description of it, I would be like, yeah, that doesn't really sound like my thing. But I guess if you described it right, I might. Like if you just said like, well, it's extremely tight storytelling and character work and a very like light and fun and good-hearted tone. Everything about that sounds good. If you describe the plot, I would be like, I don't know, that sounds like sounds like a kid show. Why would I like that?
Sure.
But like that's superficial. That's one thing I'm noticing. Like we did She-Ra, we did Avatar, The Last Airbender. Haven't we done at least one more cartoon?
I can't even remember anymore.
But anyway,
Probably.
like the point is, we did the other Avatar thing, but whatever.
Korra, yeah.
The point is, the fact that it's a cartoon is usually completely secondary to the fundamentals of the storytelling and the earnestness of the character work, and all of that stuff can work really well.
Yeah. It's also like really funny.
Yeah.
Like I think the comedic timing in this show is really excellent. Like it continually has these moments where Steven will just like say something at the end of a beat that is just hilarious. And I wish I could come up with an example off the top of my head. Nothing's coming to me, but there are really just moments where like he'll just like end a scene or a conversation with just like one word or one short phrase that's just fucking hilarious. Like it really is. It's just well timed. Like all the voice actors are doing really good work to be funny in this. It just I don't know. It's just all good. Like we haven't talked about the animation itself very much, but it's really good. Like I mean, it's not the most complicated thing in the world, right? Like it's a relatively simple animation. It's kind of, I'm trying to come up with a way that doesn't sound mean. Like it's not like the style of it is kind of rough, right? Like it's
interesting because I think that the style is my favorite thing about it. Like every character has this sort of iconic design. Like it very much passes the test of can you recognize them by their silhouette?
Sure.
And like the colors are intelligently chosen. Like the composition of the frame is usually aesthetically pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think overall, like it's highly stylized, but in a way that really appeals to me. It's sort of like a throwback almost. Like it reminds me of the types of style that were more popular when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And yeah.
When I said rough, I didn't mean like bad. I meant like you can like see the pencil lines sometimes and see them as pencil lines sometimes, if you know what I mean. Like it looks drawn in a way that I think modern cartoons try to avoid, like looking as drawn. But it is kind of throwback to the 2D animation of yesteryear.
Yeah. And I think that's actually one of the things I like about it.
I do too. I like it a lot. You're right about the designs. I mean, that is something that the show has the gems are obviously all uniquely designed, but it extends beyond that, right? Like every single character has their own unique design. Like Lars has his ear hoops. Connie has her glasses that are fake.
Yeah. Greg has his extremely long hair but bald on top.
Yeah.
and is sunburned for the first few episodes, but then that goes away eventually, I think.
I mean, kind of. I don't think it does. I think like they're all like various levels of sunburn. Like the mayor is super sunburned. And then you have Onion, who, Matt, what is Onion?
That's my other favorite thing is when Onion steals his toy and is just stealing things from everyone in the city. like speaking of Steven being like totally pure-hearted, like it takes him forever to realize that Onion is just stealing from everyone. And then when he finally does, he still forgives him. But I just love the part when Onion is like silhouetted by fire and walking towards him in slow motion. And I was just cackling. There were so many parts of this where when I was watching with my kids, I would just be cackling. And at one point they were like, why are you laughing? Like they didn't. I mean, that scene is playing on tropes in a way that's funny. So it's impossible to be like, it's funny because because fire in slow motion. Oh, you haven't watched as many movies as me. Never mind.
Yeah. I still feel like there's so much more to talk about, but it's just like you don't know where to start. Like doing these episodes on TV shows is always really hard because like,
yeah,
what do I talk about? Do I talk about the fact that Steven Spit heals things?
He accidentally heals Connie's eyesight.
Yeah. Like so.
The lion. The lion's great.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about the lion, who I was immediately like, this is a rose quartz thing because it's pink, and I was like, nobody in the show notices it's pink.
Eventually,
eventually they get there. Yeah.
But
we return to the lion 3 times, and it's always like Steven's. It's always an episode centering around Steven's relationship with his mother, and like that is just so like it's wonderful and like the moment where they all watched the cassette or the VCR tape that she left for him, and it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Everyone is crying, including us.
Yeah. Oh my God. I just like, that's what I mean by the show sneaks up on you. Like I never expected, like after an episode like Cat Fingers, that there was going to be an episode where Steven finds a tape from his mother, and it like is a break your heart, wonderful moment. And the fact that it can pull off all these things simultaneously is just, it's a miracle almost.
Yeah.
And I can't believe the show convinced me why Rose Quartz would love Greg, because like I like Greg a lot, but Greg comes off very early in the show as like the screw up idiot father, sitcom dad stereotype, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like any of the sitcom dads were like why would Marge ever be with Homer,
right?
Type of thing. Like why ever? And eventually, I think we get enough of an understanding of who Greg is as a person that we can confidently say, yeah, I get it. I get why she came to this planet with the intent of destroying it, met this person, and just kind of fell in love with this person. And because like, I think some of the best parts of Steven do come from his father. Like, I think the kindness and the caring and the protectiveness come from his mother, but like the optimism, the cheeriness, the way of looking at the world and never, and only being able to see the good things, I think that comes from his dad.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the same thought actually, like, the best of humanity and the best of the gems, because the gems aren't magically good. The gems are, if anything, kind of weird and alien by default. And Rose Quartz was a special and unique one, and Greg is a special and unique guy in his own way, and Steven is the very unique thing that comes out of that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I just think, irony gets exhausting. Manufactured conflict gets exhausting, and a show that is just completely earnest and really, I think, sort of crafted around this idea of empathy and solving problems by being empathetic and emotionally intelligent. That's very refreshing to me.
I agree, and I think the show makes fun of itself sometimes, but it's never in like a insecure way, you know? Like, I think the show is very confident in what it is and what it wants to be. And so when it is poking fun at itself, it's doing it lovingly. I mean, there's a lot of this show that is like I agree with you. There's so much, I'm trying to think of the way to word this. Like there's so much TV out there that wants to be like dark and brooding and pessimistic. And even in optimism, it comes from a place of like, well, this is like the one instance of goodness.
Right.
Like, but this show is just like, no.
Yeah.
And even as there's all horrible things surrounding it, like everything around Steven's life is bad. like his adopted mothers like are a constant state of fear. Like he has very little control over his life. His mother's gone. He's got these powers he doesn't fully understand. A lot of people in the town, like no one hates him in Beach City, but they don't like love him either. Like a lot of the people talk, like he calls Lars his friend, like one of his best friends for the longest time. And Lars doesn't like him. I mean, until later in the show.
Yeah.
Like and it just, none of it ever gets him down. None of it ever phases him.
Yeah.
He just goes forward. And so there's an episode I want to talk about here, and it's technically the first episode of season 2.
I literally was going to be like, except for this one example. And yeah, go ahead.
Right. So the first episode of season 2 is called Full Disclosure. It is basically the aftermath of the end of season 1, where the gem warship crashes into Earth and everyone almost dies. Like, Steven got smacked really hard in the face by Jasper. And that's one of the choices that I think is brilliant about this episode, is that he has a black eye throughout the entire episode, which is a thing in cartoons that they would probably just get rid of, right? Like, an episode has passed. Like, damage, like hurt and damage doesn't stay on your characters when episodes pass, but they chose to give Steven a black eye here. And he's basically reeling from the fact that his life has kind of fundamentally changed. Like, everyone's like, his dad's freaking out. His dad's losing his mind. He almost died. His mother's almost died, and he's scared. He's terrified, and he's terrified for the people he loves. He's terrified for Connie. And so he just like blows her off and tries to avoid her because he doesn't think he can be friends with her anymore because his life is too dangerous. And it's going through this very predictable is the wrong word, but like, this is a story that's been told before, right? This idea of like, you go through this horrible ordeal and you're a superhero, and so you decide, I can't be with Mary Jane because it's too dangerous.
Right.
It's too dangerous for Mary Jane. I can't do that.
Exactly.
And so I'm gonna tell her that I don't want to be with her. And it's going through all those motions. And then at the very end of this episode, there's a moment where he like climbs on top of the wreckage of the ship, and it's this wonderfully, like, the animation here is beautiful because he's in shadow, like you can't see his face, and he like badassly jumps off the wreckage of the ship and like lands in a superhero pose on his knee, and like his head's down so you can't see his face, and you're like, okay, here we go, here's where he's gonna be like, I don't want to be with you anymore. And then that's where we're gonna end the episode. We're gonna end the episode on Steven being negative, but not this show, because he looks up and his face is covered in snot and tears, and he's just like, I still want to be your friend,
right.
And that is this show, right? Like, that I think is quintessentially this show.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I watched that episode, even though Hulu's weird. I don't understand why this happened, and Bob, the patron who recommended this to us, told me that this was going to happen. For whatever reason, the Hulu list of what our season 1 episodes are in an incorrect order, and some of them are not right. So like, this is technically a season 2 episode, but
I'm glad we watched it, because that was one of my favorite moments in terms of like underlining this thesis that we're making, or that we're extracting, because like you said, that's a perfect example of what I would call the like, sort of manufactured drama that is not. It's weird. I don't like my own phrasing, because all drama in storytelling is manufactured, obviously.
Sure.
And it's not that the story doesn't create situations where there are misunderstandings. It's just that it seems to create the misunderstanding so that it can show you a no-nonsense, relatively fast and painless way of resolving that miscommunication via communication and empathy. So like, that's an example where Steven is having a really hard time personally. What he needs to do is reach out to his friend. That would make everything better. It just would. Like there's really the whole idea of Spider-Man and Mary Jane not being together is a sort of inauthentic thing, because you're like, yeah, but like, it wouldn't really, like you could still be with Mary Jane and have it be a secret. Like that's in the back of your mind the whole time. You're like, this isn't really authentic. This is the creators moving details around to make it seem, and that's why this is great, is Steven is like, I don't want to put you at risk, but I need somebody to confide in. And it's like, that's wholesome. Like, if anything, that's teaching. If this is a kids show, fundamentally, if kids are the target audience of this, I'm really happy with this idea that it's sort of this sequence of lessons of like, when you're having a hard time, share it with your friend. Maybe.
Yeah, they can actually help you.
Yeah.
Like, I know you don't want to feel like you're a burden to your friends, but your true friends will be there for you and the thing to not do is blow them off because you're afraid of unloading on them.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful moment. I was so floored by it. And I think the other reason was because like a lot of times you're writing a show and you have to make 50 episodes a season and you need ideas. And sometimes you kind of betray your character to chase an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And like at first I thought that's what they were going to do here. And I just felt like that was so fundamentally un-Steven to actually, like when she says, if you don't want to be my friend anymore, tell me to my face. Come. And it's like, I was like, Steven would never be able to do this. And so I had the biggest smile on my face as soon as that moment lands and is revealed, because of course. And it's just like, it's satisfying because it lines up to your understanding of the character.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, like I did not expect this show. Like the weird thing is like, I like so many different parts of it. Like, it's not just like, oh, the character works really great. I'm invested in the story now too, and that was definitely a thing I was not expecting. Like, I was not expecting to care about like what's going to happen with Peridot. Like,
Yeah.
Where are they going to come back? How are we going to defeat them? What's going on here?
Yeah. Right. Or even like the backstory, like who was Rose Quartz really, and why did she come to Earth, and what
There's definitely still some secrets here
Absolutely,
with that we don't know about.
Yeah, it's great. I loved it.
I loved it. Yeah. And, we've said this multiple times. Like, we've covered first seasons of shows before, and we always ask each other the question, are you going to watch more of it? And I usually say yes, but I've not done it. Like, I think we both finished She-Ra, and we both like, yeah, this is a great show. I want to see more of the show. I know you have, because you watched it with your daughter.
Yeah.
I have not watched any more of She-Ra, and I want to. I've just not gotten around to it. And I really think that this is one of those things that I want to immediately dive back into.
Yeah.
There are, I think, 4 more seasons after this. They are not all 53 episodes. They're a little bit shorter. But I want to check them out. And apparently, like, this just ended, actually, Matt. Like the finale.
Show. Oh, wow.
Like, so they did their seasons and they did a film, and then they said they were done. But then it came back this year as something called Steven Universe Future, which I think is like an epilogue. And that it's going to come out like tomorrow. So, hey, this is well timed.
Yeah. Awesome. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, while I was watching it, I almost just kept watching into season 2. And then I was like, no, I shouldn't do that because that's going to make the conversation difficult if I have to pay attention to spoilers.
I mean, turns out we incidentally did do that.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah. It's. I am glad I watched more She-Ra. By the way, I think I was texting you. I was like, wow, I didn't expect She-Ra to hit this hard. Like, I don't know. I don't want to go into it here, but
no, but I'm certain that it did, and I need to get around to it, and I'm certain this will hit even harder. Like, one of the big things I really am curious about is the darkness at the edges of this show. If how much more we're going to explore that. Like I said, Steven seems like this relatively well-adjusted, always relentlessly positive kid. Like, is that going to go somewhere? Like, he's not in school, Matt. Like, and maybe this is just me being like traditional children must be in school person, but like, he's not in school. He's not like, I mean, he knows how to read, so that's good. But he's not like learning like, what happens when Steven Universe grows up?
Yeah. I mean, is he mortal? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know how. Well, maybe we do know how old he is because he has birthdays. So
yeah, I don't know though. Like, how old is he? Is he like 11? I don't know.
And
how old is Steven?
Yeah, and also like what we really don't understand is like, why did Rose Quartz really do this? Like, because is she in some sense reborn as Steven, or did she just think like it's so important that I create this human gem hybrid that I literally sacrifice my life? And we don't know. We don't really. I think we will. I think we'll find out. But
yeah, and then there's one scene where she looks pregnant with him, and I'm like, wait, how does that work?
Yeah, wow. Huh. Yeah, you're right.
There's so many more questions here, and I'm really curious where it's going to go from here. I have a feeling like the show really seemed to like start off kind of light, and I don't want to call it unfocused, but it was definitely doing like a very episodic like la 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 thing where we're just like exploring concepts through this story. And then it really maybe halfway through the season like started to turn in the direction that's going to drive the plot. And I have a feeling that as they kind of find their legs with the show and keep writing more, that we will see like more serialized storytelling versus, problem of the week episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I hope not too much, because I think some of those problem of the week episodes are some of my favorites.
Me too.
But
yeah.
But I do think like we'll see it. I think we'll see its thesis kind of come out more clearly as the show goes on.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think I like the show better as a light, very funny series of wacky situations. Not that I didn't like the more main story based stuff, because that's all very like compelling and interesting. But I don't know. I think I prefer the one-offs personally.
Sure. All right. Here's the biggest question though. What fusions haven't we seen yet? This is important.
We haven't seen Garnet. And no, we have seen that. We haven't seen.
We haven't seen Garnet
and Opal, or Garnet and Pearl. I mean, yeah.
Yes, correct. We've seen Pearl and Amethyst. We've seen Garnet and Amethyst. We've seen all three of them together.
Yes.
So we got to get some Garnet and Pearl action in here.
And I mean, in theory, Steven can fuse with probably any and all of them.
Yes, that must happen too.
Yeah.
I want the Garnet Steven fusion.
I do too. I love this idea of fusion. It's a great like talk about taking like a fantasy / sci-fi conceit to talk about human issues, because really it's about communication and conflict and people who really love each other but are angry at each other is this thing that comes up more than once, I think, with the idea of like they need diffusion, but they need to get over this stupid argument that's standing between them. I love that idea.
Okay, one last thing we have to talk about before we wrap this up, because we haven't talked about the songs.
Oh, the songs are my favorite.
I did not like. Another thing I did not expect was that this show was basically like a musical, and it is very often just a musical where characters just start singing.
Yeah, and the songs are all really fun, really well written, funny. The Enormous Woman song was
Giant Woman.
Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying Enormous Woman. The Giant Woman song was maybe one of the moments where I was like, okay, this show is genius.
Yep. And then I think Garnet gives a song at the very end of the show, this season we already talked about, which is also just wonderful. Like holy crap. So the thing that happens is when you watch 50 episodes in a week, you hear the introduction you hear the intro song 50 times. And if that wasn't good, man,
it's so good though.
It is so good.
It's I want to study how good it is, because it's this very simple. It's weirdly syncopated in a way where the beats are let's see, my musical vocabulary escapes me here, but basically it's a very unusual beat in terms of where the words fall and the meter and everything, but also it's just very satisfying, and it's very, very short, which helps.
Yes, short is good. Short is good, everyone. Hey, anime intros, stop it.
Yeah,
stop
Jesus
it.
Christ.
Yeah. No, I love it. And there's not a skip intro button on Hulu, but I wouldn't have pressed it even if there was.
I agree. That's so weird. Can we just remark how weird that is, that we watched like a 50 something episode thing, and by the end we were like, I love that song.
It's been in my head all week.
Yeah, I've been singing it, walking around singing it to myself. Yeah, it's great.
So I can't wait to see where the show goes, and maybe we'll circle back around once we're done and have like a bonus segment on it to talk about it again to the end, because man,
sure,
it's good stuff.
Sounds good
stuff. Anything else you wanted to say about Steven Universe?
I think I hit all of my bullet points that I wanted to hit.
Yeah. We didn't talk about Watermelon Steven.
Watermelon Steven is one of the other Cronenberg episodes, I think.
Yeah.
Where it's creepy and unsettling and hilarious.
I love it because, like, while it was happening, I was like, hey, isn't his saliva magic? And he's spitting out all these watermelon seeds. And then his fucking baby watermelon sacrifices itself.
Oh my
for
God,
him.
that was so good. And
then the best moment of comedy in the whole season when he eats a piece of the watermelon at the end of the episode.
And all the gems like flinch, yeah. I love, I don't remember the exact exchange, but someone says like, well maybe they'll be peaceful. And Garnet says like, no, rose quartz's plants live to fight.
Yeah.
Some phrasing like that I just thought was the best.
Oh my gosh. I love this show.
Me too.
All right. So that is it for Steven Universe Season 1. Maybe we'll be back to talk about more someday. Doof. But for now, Matt, we've got to talk about the results of last week's vote. So for those of you that maybe didn't listen to last week and are wondering what the heck is going on here, we started something last week called the Council of Doof, which is where some of our patrons at certain levels get to nominate a movie or a short story for us to do a show on once a month. And then after we do that, we decide whether we think it should be added to the Doof canon, but then we leave the vote up to our listeners. So we put a vote. We talked last week. We talked about Primer, the time travel movie, and we put a vote up to all of our listeners. And Matt, do you want to know what the results are?
I do, because I don't actually know yet.
Oh, you don't?
No.
This is cool. This is cool. Well,
Hit me.
With a vote of 69%, nice, to 31%, yes, Primer has been officially entered into Doof canon.
All right.
So, there we go. That's our one time travel movie. No, just kidding.
It's quite an honor. Quite an honor for Primer.
It is, and I was very happy to see this. I think both of us agreed that the movie deserved to belong. I think the people that voted against it, for the most part, the comments I saw were people that just like they didn't hate the movie. They just thought it was okay and just not quite good enough to be in this illustrious list, which I get, but the yays have spoken, and so Primer becomes movie number 1 on our list. And I will work on like putting together a website to view the list as we add things to it. One of the questions we got last week, Matt, and I don't have an answer, is what about stuff we've already covered on the last 73 episodes of this show? Do we have to have a whole nother episode to talk about those things and vote them in?
Oh, no. Good question.
That's a really good question that I don't have an answer to. Because I think it was one of our patrons, Jess, who said, what about Avatar, The Last Airbender? Because certainly that should be in our canon because we all loved that show to death and called it one of our favorite shows ever. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. But we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out. We'll have like a vote, like just an independent vote for some of the biggest things. Maybe we'll do like a mini segment on a future episode, like a revisiting Avatar mini segment where we just like look back, because it's almost been a year since we watched the first book of that. True. At this point, which is insane. But maybe we'll like do a mini segment where we just like look back on it and then open up a vote and do something like that. I think that'd be a fun way to do it.
Yeah,
but
that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I don't think we need to like have a whole another episode on this stuff again. That seems a little much.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's interesting because I can kind of empathize with not voting for Primer because I think prior to rewatching it for this podcast, I did have the opinion of just like, yeah, this is all right. And probably also would have said like, yeah, it was pretty slow and confusing. But like when I rewatched it for the discussion with like a lot of attention, I was like, wow, this is just really, really well made. And it really sweeps you along in a way that I don't think I appreciated before. So maybe if you are ambivalent on Primer and you haven't watched it recently, just watch it again because, I mean, I'm not saying you're like wrong. I'm just saying I also didn't really realize how good it was until I kind of paid attention to it and gave it its due.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think like especially when it's the first movie on a list, like we're still kind of trying to feel out and define what is a list worthy movie. I understand where people look at it and it's I'm not sure. But the cool thing about this thing is as we develop it further, I think what is a Doof canon movie and what isn't a Doof canon movie will become a little more clear.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite comments on the primary episode was something like that I didn't put together at all, but I thought was brilliant. We talked briefly about how Abe got out of the time machine like before Aaron did, and therefore he was lying. But it occurred to me that getting out before is actually after. So they're going back in time.
Mm-hmm.
So Aaron got out first, technically, and so he hadn't gone far back enough. So he appears after Aaron did, or Abe did, on the forward-going timeline. You see what I mean?
Nope.
So if you're going back in time and you get out of the time machine early, it means you are in a future minute versus the person who gets out of the time machine when they're supposed to.
Yes.
Which is why we see him get out, quote unquote, after.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily processing the implications of that right this second.
There's nothing real. There's no real implication of it. I was just like, I remember him chastising Aaron for getting out too soon.
But he actually got out too late.
No, he did get out too soon. It's just too soon from his perspective. Looks like he was sitting around waiting for him to get out because they're going backwards.
I gotcha. Yes.
It's just something that hadn't occurred
to
me.
That and
someone pointed that out.
Yeah. I get it. And that's the kind of detail that I love about that movie, actually, is he really, really nails down the mechanics of the time travel in a way where you just don't see that in really any other movie that I can think of.
Let's move on to Scott played a video game and therefore wants to talk about it. It's the first time I played a video game in like 3 months. And so naturally, I need to tell you all about it.
Please do.
So I played a video game called To the Moon. I'm looking up who created it right now, but my understanding is this game was actually originally created in RPG Maker, which I don't know if you've ever played with that tool. Nope. It's basically just like it was basically just a program that just allows you to come up with your own RPG. It's basically just an engine toolkit that allows you to create games without really having to understand any programming. You just like place sprites and like write dialogue and like write events without having to actually know code. RPG Maker 2000 was something that Michael and I played a whole lot back in high school. But this was done, I think, on RPG Maker XP, which is a little bit of a newer version of that. I think a much more complicated version that could do much more stuff. But the basic understanding of this game, the plot is there are two characters that work for this corporation that can create fake memories in your head. And so basically what they do is they like perform wish fulfillment services to old dying people. So like if you're on your deathbed and you want to, as you die, to remember your life having accomplished X thing, they can come in and implant that memory into your head. And so you die thinking that you did X thing. And so the concept of this game is that these two people are called to the deathbed of a man named Johnny who wants to have gone to the moon. That's what he wants. He wants his life. In his life, he wants to have gone to the moon. And so they have to kind of travel through his memory. The basic conceit is they have to start at the most recent memory and then work their way back through his life to kind of link the memories together so they can get to memories that all link up and then implant the idea of wanting to travel to the moon at early as possible and have that cascade forward to where it creates the memory. It's kind of nonsense, but the point is this is a game that deals with like relationships and people and trying to understand the choices that were made in your life, because you kind of see this man's life play out in reverse, because you're starting with him as an old man and working back to him as a child. And you like his relationship with his wife, his relationship with friends. You learn a little bit about the two doctors that are performing this too. It's kind of like a mix between Inception and Eternal Sunshine a little bit.
Yeah, Eternal Sunshine is definitely a vibe I was getting there.
Yeah. And it's really beautiful. I don't want to spoil anything. It does interesting things with a lot of its characters. it made me almost cry. I played it on stream, so I didn't like weep because I was like there was a camera in my face, and I was conscious enough of that for the emotions of the game to not affect me maybe as much. But I thought it was a very beautiful experience. It's like a short, like 4-hour game, and we have played a lot of these, very story driven games, Matt, where it's really the gameplay itself is like not that important.
Yeah.
Like the gameplay in this game is every time you go to a new memory, you have to find like chunks in like little different important moments in this memory that allow you to find a certain object that extends back to an earlier memory and like unlock that object. And then you have to do this short little really simple like tile flip puzzle to use that memory to go back to another one. So there is a gameplay element, but it's really like I am terrible at puzzles, and I was never stuck for more than like 15 seconds or 30 seconds or something like that. So it is just like pure interactive storytelling. And I thought it was just beautiful, like just incredible. It's by a company called Freebird Games. It came out in 2011, so I'm very far behind. But it just came out on Nintendo Switch not too long ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was. One of my questions was going to be, how do you play it?
It's on Steam.
Okay.
It's on the Switch. It's everywhere. Apparently, I had one person who, I think one of the people in our Discord that recommended this game to me and that has played it before many times and loved it. The Switch version is on the Unity engine, not the RPG Maker engine that the Steam one was on, and they made some changes to that, and they seemed kind of indifferent to some of the changes.
Okay.
So maybe if you want to get quote unquote the best experience, just download it on Steam, but it is available on Switch. The reason I did Switch is because I was having trouble getting it to work streaming via the Steam game, because it's like it's running off a different kind of engine, and it's not like a full screen game. It was like a window mode game, and I just couldn't get it to look right on stream that way. So I tried something else. But
cool. Yeah, and so you played it because somebody in the Discord recommended it?
Yep. And man, I Friday night I was up till 2 a.m. because I started at like 8.
Wow.
And I just couldn't stop playing, and and I realized I was getting close to the end and just kept going, and it's powerful. The music is beautiful. It's all sprite based basically, and yet like it does that thing that some of the best sprite based games do, which is it manages to convey so much emotion through like eye movement in a little sprite in a way that I find shocking.
Yeah.
It's just so it's very well written. I don't know. I was floored by it.
Cool.
I really was.
Sounds great. Yeah. I'm not sure if I will have time to play it because I don't have much time to play things, but I find your argument very persuasive, and I would like to check it out. Cool.
Great. And everyone else out there should do it as well, because it's a lot of fun. It's funny. It's sad. It's powerful. It's a whole lot of things.
Awesome.
So that is To the Moon, and that is it for us. That's all we had for you guys this week. If you have any opinions on Steven Universe, which I'm sure a lot of you are going to have some opinions on Steven Universe, if you have any opinions on how the primer vote went or on To the Moon, please let us know. We love hearing from you guys. We really do. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
Yes, and don't forget that the day you are listening to this, if it came out on March 27th, will be the day of our monthly book club. So at 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on March 27th, we will be meeting in our YouTube channel to talk about the first half of Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, the first book in the Stormlight Archive. So that's tomorrow for Matt and I, but today for most of you. So if you're a big Sanderson fan and want to listen and chat with us about it for a couple hours, tune in. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And what else are you doing? You can't go out, right? You can't go out.
Yeah. So, we look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah.
Every one of you.
And of course, if you like what we do here and want to support us, you can consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1. At the $1 level, you get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord, which I think we referenced like 6 times in this episode,
Yeah.
Matt, because we have a lot of conversations with a lot of great people in there, and you can be one of those great people. You also get to decide what we cover in our monthly book club and a lot of other cool features. So head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and check those features out and decide what level you'd like to donate at. This episode right here only exists thanks to the wonderful, incredible, amazing generosity of our longtime patron, The Bob. Not just Bob, Matt. The Bob.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, and thanks for making us watch this. This is one of those where I probably would not have ever watched this if you had not forced us to. And
there's no way I would have.
yeah, now I've got this wonderful experience in my brain.
Yeah, and hopefully more wonderful experiences because we're going to watch some more of it.
Yeah. And of course, also please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, because every review on there helps us get more exposure and leads other people to the content that we're making here.
That's it for us today. We'll see you all next week when we are talking about David Fincher's Zodiac. We're back on our Deconstructing Fincher series. Awesome. I'm excited to finally get to talk about Zodiac. So we'll see you all then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.
All I want to do, Matt, is see you turn into a giant woman.
Giant woman.